introduction to Nervous Conditions, 14-year-old Tambu lives on a homestead with her parents and siblings. The impoverished family relies almost entirely on Baba Mukuru, father's brother. Baba Mukuru suggests Tambu's family invest in education to lift themselves out of poverty. They scrounge up enough money to send Tambu's older brother, Namo, to school, but don't have enough to send Tambu. Determined to be educated, Tambu starts growing mealies, corn or maize, to sell in town to white tourists in the hope of raising enough money to pay school fees. In the rising action, Baba Mukuru selects Namo to join him at the missionary school for further education. But when Namo dies unexpectedly from the mumps, Tambu takes his place. Moving to the mission transforms Tambu's life. She shares a bedroom with her cousin, Nyasha, and the two grow to share a deep, meaningful friendship. Nyasha, raised in England, pushes against the strong patriarchy by regularly disobeying her father, Baba Mukuru, with tension rising to violence between the father and daughter. Time passes as Tambu grows comfortable in her new, privileged lifestyle. When she returns to the homestead for Christmas, she feels embarrassed by her family's obvious poverty. Baba Mukuru decides mother and father must have a proper church wedding and stop living in sin. In the climax, Tambu disobeys Baba Mukuru and refuses to attend the wedding, even when Baba Mukuru threatens to withdraw her from school and cut off her funds. In the falling action, Tambu wins a scholarship and moves to a private Catholic convent school. Everyone, Baba Mukuru, Nyasha, and mother, tells her it would be a bad idea, but my guru defends Tambu's choice to make her own future. In the resolution, Tambu returns home for the first time to find that Nyasha has developed an eating disorder. After having a dramatic mental breakdown, Nyasha's parents admit her to a psychological hospital where she gradually recovers. Tambu vows to question her place within a colonized society more carefully and to use caution when allowing white culture to influence her beliefs. Tambudzai, Tambu for short, and her family comprise the characters in the novel Nervous Conditions. The protagonist of Nervous Conditions, Tambu, spends the entire novel on a journey to receiving her education, which she believes is the best way to rise out of poverty and create stability for her family. Unfortunately, Tambu faces strict gender expectations from a patriarchal system and must cope with living in a segregated and colonized country that prevents her from fully embracing her future. Nyasha struggles to figure out where she belongs. She moved back to Rhodesia from England as a teenager, having been estranged from cultural traditions and having forgotten her native language. After attending school in England, Nyasha embraces Western ideals, such as gender equality and the value of individual expression, two beliefs that sharply contrast with her traditional upbringing. Nyasha channels her energy into her studies and later develops a devastating eating disorder. Baba Mukuru is treated like a god. After proving his determination as a child working in missionary fields, he's selected to attend school where he excels and eventually is sent to England for training to run the mission school himself. As the patriarch and family breadwinner, Baba Mukuru often comes across as cold and emotionless, particularly with the women in his life. Baba Mukuru recognizes how his success keeps his entire family afloat, which puts tremendous pressure on his shoulders. My guru lives a pampered life as Baba Mukuru's wife, but she is well educated, holding a master's degree in psychology, but the money she makes is handed over to Baba Mukuru. Although educated and working, my guru is still expected to fill traditional female roles, such as cooking, cleaning, and catering to Baba Mukuru's massive family, which she finds exhausting. After a fight with Baba Mukuru about Tambu's punishment, my guru briefly leaves him. Mother is a victim under patriarchal rule. She belonged first to her father and then to her husband, and has never made her own decision about anything. Mother suffers for being married to a lazy, alcoholic husband, and for having lost multiple children during childbirth. Feeling powerless, Mother suffers from chronic, severe depression, made worse after Namo's death and Tambu's departure for convent school. More things she feels she has no control over. Nyasha's eating disorder and Tambu's garden are the key significant symbols in the powerful novel Nervous Conditions. Near the end of the novel, Nyasha's eating disorder reaches fever pitch. Without Tambu around, Nyasha feels increasingly isolated and unable to fight against the patriarchy. With her father's constant demands, as well as cultural expectations she cannot meet, the only things Nyasha can control are her studies and her body. Nyasha's eating disorder symbolizes the insidiousness of colonization, in which one culture slowly takes over and controls another. Baba Makuru's control eats away at Nyasha's spirit, threatening to erase her individualism completely. At the end of the novel, Mother claims Nyasha's condition results from the Englishness she was exposed to, suggesting that on a larger scale, English colonialism eats away at African culture and threatens to erase it. This is best demonstrated by children like Namo, who forget their native language after being at the British mission school and are ashamed of their Shona culture upon returning to the homestead. By vomiting up food her father orders her to eat, Nyasha rejects patriarchal power, both physical and symbolic, that threatens to destroy her spirit. Tambu's garden is a major symbol that speaks to her character. When her family cannot afford to send her to school, Tambu decides to grow corn on her own plot, in the hopes of selling the cobs to tourists to make enough money to pay her own tuition. The garden symbolizes Tambu's independence. Using traditional methods she learned growing up on the homestead, Tambu works tirelessly to nurture her crop, thus nurturing her independence at the same time. The garden work creates an interesting juxtaposition because with the education Tambu hopes to gain, she will likely never have to caretake a garden again. The corn she intends to raise will pay for her tuition fees, ensuring she no longer depends on Baba Makuru's generosity to secure her educational future, a generosity that favors males above females. Because the Shona culture frowns on female independence, it makes symbolic sense that Namo should attempt to destroy Tambu's independence by attempting to destroy her crops. Patriarchy, colonialism, and duality are the main themes in Nervous Conditions. Patriarchy, the cultural belief that men are superior to women, exerts itself in a variety of ways in Nervous Conditions, such as favoring Tambu's brother to attend school over Tambu, and Baba Makuru having the final say in all family matters, regardless of whom they concern. All the novel's women suffer under the patriarchy. Mother lives in impoverished squalor, with no other options than to accept the life her lazy husband provides. My guru receives no respect or say in family matters. Returning to Rhodesia from England, where she experienced life with gender equality, Nyasha doesn't respect her father in the same way Tambu does, which leads to constant conflict. Nyasha recognizes the value of her individual mind, which she determines to use regardless of social protocol. Colonialism underscores everything in Nervous Conditions, which is set in Rhodesia under British colonial rule in the 1960s. Although the presence of British forces is never directly referenced, the contrast between British and native or Shona culture is sharply felt. One aspect of colonialism was the idea that British culture was more refined than native culture, so missionaries set up schools to educate native children on the proper ways to live. Once those like Baba Makuru have been deemed special by the colonizing power, they are no longer free to choose their own path, lest they appear ungrateful for the white generosity. Colonialism also replaces native culture with its own, as seen in the way Tambu's views of the homestead life change as she progresses in her education, and the struggles Nyasha feels to fit in with her Shona family after having been raised in England separate from her native traditions. Duality speaks to how children raised in two cultures struggle to fit in either place, creating two identities in constant conflict with each other. To survive in England, Nyasha forgets her Shona traditions. Back in Rhodesia, Nyasha's new identity no longer fits. Tambu literally creates a new identity for herself when climbing into Baba Makuru's car, leaving behind the old version of herself and expecting to meet the new version at the mission. The two selves battle strongly against each other when Baba Makuru calls for Tambu's parents to have a church wedding. In the end, she realizes that her Shona identity is being brainwashed and erased, which she vows never to let happen.